Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty King Abdullah met with several heads of delegates taking part in the two-day Aqaba meetings to follow up, discuss and coordinate international efforts to fight terrorism and extremism. The meeting, which kicked off today in Aqaba, will focus on security challenges in East Africa. His Majesty's separate meetings with the delegates focused on bilateral cooperation efforts to counter terrorism within a holistic approach, as well as a number of regional issues. The King met with U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Christian Nielsen, Kenya's Foreign Minister Monica Juma, including Kenya's Chief of Defense Forces General Samson Mwathethe, and Zambia's Foreign Minister Joseph Malangi. The King also met with Philippines' National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon, French Assistant External Security Director Patrick Zimmerman, and Under Secretary General of the UN Counterterrorism Office Vladimir Voronikov. The Aqaba meetings, which were launched by His Majesty in 2015, aim to boost security and military coordination and cooperation among regional and international parties to combat terrorism. Prime Minister Omar al-Razzaz and the government economic team discussed investment and economic policies and measures to spur growth. The ministerial task force looked into ways to enhance the competitiveness of the national economy, increase national exports, and plans to attract needed foreign investment to the country to help create jobs and curtail unemployment, especially in the governorates and remote areas. President of the Economic and Social Council, Mustafa Hamarne, also briefed the ministers on two studies. One, assessing the economic and social impact of government decisions in 2017 and 2018 related to taxes on commodities and services, while the other was on a macroeconomic model. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Ayman al-Safadi and visiting European Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management Christos Stylianides discussed ways of cementing cooperation between Jordan and the European Union. Safadi and Stylianides stressed the need to further develop the Jordanian-European partnership in various fields. The EU official hailed Jordan's efforts to bring about security and stability in the region and pledged that the EU will continue to support the kingdom through multiple cooperation and partnership programs. Safadi and Stylianides also discussed regional developments, including the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. His Royal Highness Prince Ali, Chairman of the National Center for Security and Crisis Management, also met with the European Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Christos Stylianides. The two discussed means of forging closer cooperation, coordination and training between the EU and the Center, including ways of organizing specialized joint programs on managing humanitarian and natural disasters. Prince Ali highlighted the need for an exchange of expertise between the EU and the Center as the European Commissioner was briefed on the Center's work mechanism, including the technology it uses in crisis management. Anti-narcotics department personnel arrested 26 drug promoters in possession of firearms and narcotics. A public security directorate spokesperson said anti-narcotics department staff dealt with a number of drugs possession and promotion cases during the past 2 days in Wihdat, Baqa, Jarash, Ajloon, Aqaba and Mafra. In Sweden, at the UN-sponsored Yemen peace talks, the Houthi group's top negotiator has called for the formation of a transitional government with the participation of all political parties. Houthi negotiator Mohammed Abdel Salam called for the country's main port city, Hodeidah, to be a neutral zone and said his group was open to the possibility of giving the UN a role at Sana'a airport as part of an effort to get it reopened. The Houthi group control major population centers in Yemen, including the capital Sana'a and the port of Hodeidah on the Red Sea. Yemen's war has left 15.9 million people facing severe acute food insecurity. Humanitarian groups say peace is the only way of ending the world's largest humanitarian crisis. In France, the country's prime minister called for fresh dialogue with representatives of the Yellow Vest movement that is staging protests across France, promising that the government would address concerns over rising living costs. In the same televised statement, the French Interior Minister said demonstrations were now under control, but also promising high level of police presence tomorrow if necessary. Christophe Castaner added that some 125,000 Yellow Vest protesters demonstrated around France today. Protesters smashed store windows and set fires around Paris and clashed with police who fired tear gas throughout the day in the French capital. Meanwhile, in Brussels, Belgian police detained more than 400 people after Yellow Vest protesters threw rocks and firecrackers and damaged shops and cars as they tried to reach official buildings. The movement in Belgium, which was inspired by the Yellow Vest protests in France, has given voice to complaints about the cost of living and demanded the removal of Belgium's center-right coalition government. China has built a sponge city to improve flood management in its central Henan province. So, a sponge city, as the term suggests, works like a sponge. When there's rainfall, it absorbs the water and retains it. And when there's need, it can also release the stored water. Hebei City is one of the country's model sponge cities. In 2015, the city designated nearly 30 square kilometers as a pilot area for sponge city construction. The project began by softening the hard, impervious pavement, common to the urban landscape. The greenery and gardens lining the pavement also absorb and purify rainwater as it infiltrates the ground. Underneath, water storage modules are installed to save the rainwater for later use. Although the Sponge City initiative started out as a solution to flooding, experts say the project is also asking for a change of mindset towards a more holistic and sustainable approach to urban development. In sports, Lewis Hamilton looked forward to more success with Mercedes after collecting his 5th Formula One World Champions trophy at the governing FIA's Gala Awards. Britain's most successful racing driver and only the 3rd man to win at least 5 titles also won a media vote for Personality of the Year, denying Red Bull rival Max Verstappen a 4th in a row. He said it feels incredible to win the trophy and added that he would be around long enough to give matching Schumacher's record 7 championships a try. And finally, the weather outlook. It will be cold tonight with a low chance of rain. It continues to be cold tomorrow, even as temperatures slightly rise but remain 3 to 4 degrees below their seasonal normal, while scattered showers are expected in the northern areas. Tomorrow's forecast temperatures in Amman, highs of 15 degrees and lows of 7, while Aqaba's highs reach 24 degrees and drop down to 12 at night. That's all for tonight. I'm Dana Abu Sham. Thanks for watching and have a good night.